right now.
Everything is fucking ridiculous. Nothing ever works. Fucking, we're only a half an hour late. Not that anybody listens to this shit anyway, which they should, but it's just fucking ridiculous. Are we live?
Let's see. We are.
Fuck. They fucking ridiculous. They just,
Yep.
yeah, of course.
Oh yeah. Now you're on.
Well, let's tweet out the link.
Absolutely, dude. Here. Let me send it to the people. All right.
You tweet it out. I'll just tag it. Someone said, "Don't fuck this shit up." The stand-up dummies.
Yep. They're following us now.
I don't know who that is, but hey, fuck you.
They've got it's two guys as well, and they're friends with the rest of Ion, I believe. At least a good chunk of them. So
All right,
I
are
just
we live?
posted to the group.
Technical difficulties happen, guys. Everybody kiss my ass.
It is funny though, because they have not given us a real strong indication who they like. They just don't want us to fuck it up. So anyway, the clip, or not the clip, the link is active. Check us out. Follow us on the Twitter. Spiked CFB 88. And I've got, yeah, so if you can take care of that, Johnny, I've got our bracket up right here. For those of you who are joining us,
what are you shooting screen?
we've got our Millennial Cartoon Sweet 16 already up. So I'm showing that off to the people. So y'all can follow along as we talk about this stuff.
Is there anybody even watching?
Man, I don't know.
I don't know either, man. Suck it, hookers. We're gone. Took me a while. I had some technical difficulties. Your mothers were blowing me, so suck it, bitches.
Who's moving on? I didn't know anybody was giving you shit.
I'm just saying, if anybody's giving a shit for being late, suck it. I don't care.
Oh, I see.
I'm Johnny B. I'm fucking important. I wear Magnum condoms. See that? We're sponsored again here by Magnum.
As always.
Don't worry, I just use them to jerk off. No one ever fucks me.
All right. And that's also not true. You're full of lies today, my friend. So why don't we get started with our Sweet 16, which I have currently posted. So anybody who happens to be watching
this Millennial Cartoon Sweet 16, Rob. Let's go. How did we get here? What let's recap a little bit. How did we get here? Who's left, and how pissed are some people?
Well, I know at least one person, the only person I live with is pissed that Batman the Animated Series did not make it farther, which is fair. But it had a tough side of the bracket, so it makes it tough when you go up against some really great shows. I would say part of the Sweet 16 is a little soft. Part of the Sweet 16 is very, very challenging. We had, some existential crises last time trying to deal with who would move on if you had to pick one of these cartoons over the other. And I think we're going to have more of that tonight. So let's see. We've got the Wild Thornberrys, who are still here. They bumped off SpongeBob SquarePants to get to that spot. And they were going up against the Animaniacs, who, let's see, where are they on the bracket? I don't even know. But they were, I believe, the 4 seed, and they made it past. Oh man, I don't remember who they beat.
SpongeBob SquarePants to get to that spot.
Oh, Dragon Ball Z or Dexter's Lab. They had to go against Dexter's Laboratory. So they, again, that's not a super, I would say, tough spot to get through. Meanwhile, in a different bracket, we had all of these very, I would say, strong contenders all going up against each other. Um, Teen Titans went up against Powerpuff Girls in the first round, both of which are, beloved franchises. But I think that there is a lot of pull from people our age for Teen Titans. But Powerpuff Girls, they even relaunched the series because they thought it was such a good series. Um, and I definitely think it has a lot going for it. But that we also had Recess, a very strong contender that had to try and get past Powerpuff Girls, and it just didn't happen. Tiny Toons beat out The Simpsons to get to where they are, and Haye Arnold had to beat Doug and Pokemon, who
Which was
beat
the
Phineas and Ferb.
toughest. I think that was the toughest thing to get through.
I think that might have been the toughest bracket. Yeah. So we've got those. Let's see. Then we also have Ed and Eddie, who made it through, and they're going against Looney Tunes in another side of the bracket. And they had to get past Pinky and the Brain, definitely a challenging one. But once they got past that, they had Invader Zim and Cow and Chicken, fairly straightforward. Once you beat something as strong as Pinky and the Brain, to get to that level. Do you know that Ed and Eddie went 11 years on Cartoon Network? 11. I
Long
found
time.
that out today. They went past a decade on Cartoon Network. Anyway, Spider-Man 94 beat out the show that never really existed. We just thought it existed, the Bernstein Bears. And then we had Courage the Cowardly Dog, which had to beat out a pretty, I would say, weak competition. Not that Ren and Stimpy and Beavis and Butthead are weak, but they played each other. So it was they kind of canceled each other out for them to get to that point. And let's see, the last part of the bracket, which I think has some of the strongest contenders in it, though I don't think that they had a particularly difficult time getting there, let's see, we've got the dark horse, the Tick, who absolutely, only because I'm one of the judges, got way farther than it needed to.
Because you are.
Um, but it's going against South Park, who is a absolute horse. And then there's Avatar, which is a very strong show, but it's going up against Futurama, another very strong show that actually came back from being canceled just to, make it happen. But yeah, Batman the Animated Series had to run up into South Park. That's why he didn't make it, but Spider-Man 94 did on the other side of the bracket. So anyway, Johnny, that's most of our matchups here. So we did do a Twitter poll as well in case Johnny and I cannot agree on which show should go forward. We are going to kick it to the audience to see who gets the nod in the event of a tie. So do you want to start with which corner of the bracket do you want to start with, Johnny?
Let's go normals.
Normals. All right. Top left, we have the Wild Thornberries versus the Animaniacs. So two very different shows. I believe, Johnny, you saw all of the Wild Thornberry movies. Animaniacs recently got relaunched, and of course, I saw the whole show as a kid, and then I started watching the new one as well. So I'm always favoring the Animaniacs. I did take a look and do another look back at the Wild Thornberries and all of the dynamics. I actually watched an old episode just to see if I was missing anything. Johnny, how about you? What do you think of those
And
two?
the dynamic between Debbie and Eliza is amazing. It's your typical big brother, or excuse me, big sister, little sister. The big sister's cool, the little sister's a nerd. We all get it. I'm talking like Kuiper. The draft just happened. It's fine. But then, I mean, you got Tim Curry playing Nigel Thornberry. What a fantastic character. There's a monkey that talks that brings in the animal kingdom. They go on adventures. They even, do a little cross reference with some Rugrats. I think it's a hands down ultimate show of. It's not even a guilty pleasure. It's a great show. It's
It
very
is.
underrated. I think it's very underrated overall. I think this came in as like a 7 seed, maybe, and
A 9, yeah. I think he came in as an 8 or 9 seed.
so I think it should have been at least a 3. He runs a 4.2. He does really good. The cone drill's great. I like the Wild Thornberries. I think there's lots of good dynamics. I think there's depth to characters.
Yes.
Except for like the monkey. You can't go really deep onto a monkey, but it's just a fantastic. And I love the RV. Again, that RV is literally everything I would want to live in. It floats, it flies, it goes on the ground.
And that is very true. I mean, like I said, I have nothing bad to say about the Wild Thornberries. to me, rewatching the Animaniacs, I couldn't believe how many kids, we were kids when we watched that show, and still we were like, I love that show. You couldn't get away with that shit today. I mean, the Animaniacs, even the relaunch, there it has a very different dynamic because of where we are as a culture. Back in the Animaniacs, they were just like, yeah, global warming's a thing. And it wasn't controversial. It was just a thing because they were just doing the thing. And so now today, half of the stuff that the Animaniacs discussed back then, they had like the wheel of morality and shit like that. And they'd be like, wheel of morality, turn, 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 tell us the lesson that we should learn. And one of them, I think it was always, I don't know, it was one of them would just be like, oh, why do we have to do the wheel of morality? And he's like, well, because the very nice executives at Fox really want us to make sure we're educated.
I mean, I'll give you that. That was pretty funny when they used to bring it back, like,
oh God, it's just
and they
so
used to break the fourth wall like Deadpool does.
Yeah, it was just it was Deadpool without it was like Deadpool and Roger Rabbit.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll give you that. I have nothing bad to say about the Animaniacs.
Exactly. So that's why it's tough. Like I love both.
The way that we should do this is if you were sitting down and rather watch a couple episodes, I would be the Wild Thornberrys.
Okay. And see, for me, if we were to sit down and watch a couple episodes, I would go with Animaniacs. And it's not if I had to choose between the two, and it's not because I have any less love for the Thornberrys. It's that again, we talked about this. You're the outdoors guy. You really love all of the nature stuff. And I enjoyed that as a kid, but in my old age as a grumpy old man, it just doesn't grab me. The nature side of things is not my forte. So I would always pick the Animaniacs and having them basically riff and make fun of everything culturally significant at the time than the Wild Thornberries. So with that said, I think we have a tie, right? Like I think that's just what we're a gentleman's tie, and but either way. So what we're going to do with our screen share is we are going to drop down on Spiked, and we are going to see.
That's bullshit.
And we're going to see who wins out.
Animaniacs win with 62% of the poll vote.
And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. So, and honestly, not that it was pretty close with 13 votes. That's really like, I think it's a 8-3 combo, 8-5. So it's not like it was super, it wasn't a runaway like some of these polls. But in this case, the Animaniacs are going to have to move on.
Bullshit.
I know, buddy. I know. So let's take a look. Let's figure out the rest of that side of the bracket, and then we can go from there. You were just talking about the Rugrats, how they had a bunch of crossover with the Wild Thornberries. I think it was the same creators, and so of course they did a bunch of crossovers with the little guys. So Johnny Bravo is going against Rugrats. Again, I rewatched a couple episodes of both just to see. I am a huge Rugrats fan. Just the kids are such great characters. They're phenomenal.
Johnny Bravo had a great run, good run into the tournament. Did a good job, played what they did. Beat the teams they're supposed to. They're just not going to beat a horse. They're not equipped. Johnny Bravo and company are not equipped to beat a horse. They teach you everything you need to know about hitting on girls the wrong way and all of that, and I love it for that. But they're just not going to. They're not going to beat the Rugrats.
Right. Well, and this is interesting though. Had the Thornberrys gone through, you would have had Thornberrys versus Rugrats. To me, that would have been even more like, basically, those creators would have had both a shoe-in to the final. It's kind of like having, in our wasn't ours, but Ion's March Podness bracket challenge when you had Bert Kreischer versus Bert Kreischer and Tom Segura. Like he's a winner no matter what. So we're avoiding that scenario in this particular case. It'll be Animaniacs versus the Rugrats in the Great Eight. So let me stop the screen share for a sec so that we can chit chat about any of the other shows that are coming up, mostly because I need to write in who made it through so we don't forget 20 minutes.
Well, that's the matchup we got in the Great Eight, in the Elite Eight. We got the Animaniacs versus the Rugrats. That'll be interesting.
Oh, solid. Very, very solid.
Two solid teams going in to play each other.
Absolutely. So why don't we jump back and take a look at the the next part down. So the rest of that great eight. We've got The Tick, again, a dark horse candidate if I've ever seen one, versus South Park.
Rob, I'll let you go ahead and you know,
So
sell
again,
me.
I rewatched. I mean, I've seen a lot of South Park. I think most people have. I'd rewatched The Tick because to see if it was just nostalgia powering it or not. And no, it's a funny show. It really is. It's great, but it is underrated for a reason. It is not a giant. It is not even a giant killer. I will say just a shout out to our like I will say that I will always pick The Tick if my back's against the wall. But I know that South Park is a great show, and so does apparently the rest of Twitter. This was 100% voting for South Park over The Tick. So unless Johnny has a change of faith and a crisis of conscience and decides to take The Tick as well, any tie really goes to South Park in this one. So I'm going to pick The Tick, Johnny. Are you going to pick South Park or The Tick?
Well, knowing that our audience is actually intelligent, I'm going to go ahead and pick South Park, and I'm pretty sure they're going to go through. I'm not even going to give away any future comments or thoughts because I'm saving that for if you're ever going to actually give me a real battle, and I'm going to have to just persuade you the other way. And it's South Park.
Yeah. No, and I think I posted a comment on Twitter. I love The Tick, and I love the fact that it's always tried to turn the superhero idea on its head a little bit, but still stay true to the idea of superheroes. But at the same time, is it a culturally defining show made with paper cutouts? No, then it's going to lose to South Park. So with that said, who are they going to go against is the question, Johnny, because we got two shows in the bottom half that at least as of last week you had not seen a lot of.
I
So
watch Futurama. Avatar, I don't. It's not for me.
all right. So did you watch some Futurama though? Did you check it out this
Futurama is very, very smart, yet stupid,
Yep.
and I can see where it gets the older audience and the younger audience. I think it's a good show. I think it's a very, very smart show. I think there's like with a couple other shows on here with Family Guy and South Park. I think it's right there with them.
Gotcha. All right, well that's fair. Like I said, I love Avatar. I think it's a great show as well, but it is geared towards a younger audience. Even at most, we're talking teenagers. And so Futurama definitely tries to hit a wider audience, and I think does a really good job of it. And there's a reason why the creator of The Simpsons, a show that's still running, decided to go out of his way to also create the Futurama and to do, kind of something different with the kind of humor he's always tried to employ. He really was looking at, I would say, the future of society and thus Futurama. So I would agree with you. Futurama should move through over Avatar, just in the kind of, let's say, the social impact of it. So that means we're going to have South Park versus Futurama in the Great Eight there. And this is going to be interesting. A little clash of, I would say, cartoon titans. The makers of both of those shows are huge in the cartoon arena. So, but speaking of huge cartoons, if we want to switch up to the top right over here, we have Looney Tunes versus Ed, Edd and Eddy. So these two, I mean, Looney Tunes ran for, I think, the specific Looney Tunes show from the 90s ran from almost 8 years, I believe, on the network. And we were talking about it earlier. Ed, Edd and Eddy ran on Cartoon Network for about 11 years. So just two perennials in the cartoon field, obviously geared towards children. Johnny, what do you think of these two shows?
I think it's a tough call here, but Ed and Eddy was like a smart Beavis and Butthead, like a smart version of that. Is that a way I could describe it? In that kind of a stylistically, I'm saying, maybe not content-wise, but stylistically.
Mm-hmm.
And Looney Tunes is just Looney Tunes, and I love Looney Tunes. I always love Looney Tunes. The characters are timeless.
Sure.
This particular one for them didn't go as long as Ed and Eddy. But if you say, hey, did you watch the Looney Tunes to somebody, or hey, they watch Ed and Eddy, what are they going to say?
Well, yeah, I mean, going back all the way to the 50s, you've seen some version of the Looney Tunes. They're traditional cartoons. That's who they set the stage for everybody. Um, Now, Johnny, I will say, because again, I went back into it. I always felt that you were an Eddie kind of guy, just like if you and me, and we'll say JC, grew up together in a cul-de-sac. I would be Double D, and you would be more of the Eddie, like trying to always find a way to get money from the other kids in the neighborhood so we go buy candy, basically. I mean, that's you. So I always felt that strong like kinship when rewatching, a couple of the episodes. I was like, yep, that's me. There I am. And that was the thing with Ed and Eddie, that
They did reach to every kid.
they really gave you that every kid kind of growing up, I don't know, feel like you could connect with all the characters, and nobody was like a good guy or bad guy per se. They were just all real. They were just all kids. I could recognize pretty much anybody from the neighborhood as somebody I grew up with. And that's the part where, to me, it gives the edge over Looney Tunes. Tiny Toons, whole different story. Tiny Toons is a different side of the bracket. But to me, versus kind of this traditional Looney Tunes thing, I would give Ed and Eddie the edge in my, if we were to say let's watch an episode right now between the two, that's kind of the marker. I would say let's watch an episode of Ed and Eddie, and just kind of chill out. So I don't know. How do you feel about that?
I'm going Looney Tunes, bud.
All right. Well,
Take it to the
we have a
beat.
tie then. So let's go back to. So Rugrats one there, South Park one there. We're kind of pacing ourselves right here. Futurama, very nice. Ooh,
Looney Tunes by a boat.
just a teeny tiny edging by with Looney Tunes versus Ed and Eddie. Very nice. And this is why it's important that you guys vote on Twitter, obviously, because when it's just me and Johnny, we're not going to stick with rock, paper, scissors, for important things like this. We'll give you guys the opportunity to tell
Because
us who
this
you vote
isn't
for.
just for us. This millennial cartoon is for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even if you're not a millennial, you definitely have heard these shows and you have a right to participate. Your vote doesn't count as much because you don't have the nostalgia factor, but, it's still important. You get a chance to vote. So, all right, Looney Tunes I will say, sneak through, even though they were a 1 seed over Ed and Eddie, which was a 13 seed. So a real buzzer beater there for the Looney Tunes. All right, so they're going to be moving on to go against the winner of either Courage the Cowardly Dog or Spider-Man 94. So, John, did you check out any of this? I know I know you're
I
more of a
watched
comics guy.
I watched a couple of clips of Courage the Coward Dog.
Yeah.
I did not watch a full episode, and for that, I'm going with Spider-Man.
Fair enough. I did enjoy the fact that Courage was,
This is how I learned like all of the Spider-Man caricatures.
yeah, yeah. They really set the stage. I think I watched half of the first season of Courage again because I really enjoy the show. I'm not a big horror films kind of guy, but they were so good at taking those tropes and stuff from these horror films and putting them into, nowhere, literal town of nowhere, and Courage just like being, the good boy, the dog that saves his owner's asses, even the grandpa who doesn't really like him that much. But yeah, Spider-Man is one of my favorite characters in comics, just all time, and the reason is because of that Spider-Man 94, the show, just making it very accessible, easy for me to understand who the characters were, where they fit in, the villains, you know, the Sinister Six, like all of that was a great introduction. And then I could dive into it and really, enjoy the Spider-Man universe, which continues to this day. Get into the Spider-Verse, all that stuff would not be possible. That movie would not have had the same impact without a show like Spider-Man 94 setting the stage for, you know, us that watched it and even the people who created that movie, and all the other obviously movies around it, all the actual live action stuff as well. So yeah, I would say Spider-Man 94 is the way to go. Um, Again, a bit of a clash of just different ways of approaching the same medium in the next round between Spider-Man 94 and Looney Tunes. Both, I want to say more traditional cartoons, but one's very action oriented and the other one's Looney Tunes. So, all right, let's take a look see now at the next part of the bracket. This is the rest of the Sweet 16. We've got the Powerpuff Girls going up against Family Guy. Johnny, what are your thoughts?
I mean, really? We're gonna discuss this? This is like a blowout. This is like where the 1 seed was very overrated, and then
Mhm.
I think the Family Guy was a 3 seed, was clearly the better team. Clearly the better team, and they just run the score up. This isn't even close. I'm not even going to get into the details of Family Guy because it's Family Guy.
Right. Now, I will say, versus where we had like South Park versus The Tick, I think that South Park has fared better over the years than Family Guy. And I'm just going to say that right now. And that Powerpuff
Family Guy,
Girls has fared.
Family Guy got canceled.
Right, right. But even like the spin-offs from Family Guy and stuff like that, American Dad and The Cleveland Show, I just didn't think they fared as well over time as South Park. Um, but in the same token, I think Powerpuff Girls has fared better over the years than The Tick, the show. So I would say that this is still, I would agree with you, it's still a blowout, but not as strong, not 100% like South Park over The Tick, where no matter what I say, there's only so much you can do against, like I said, a culturally defining show like South Park. And I just don't think Family Guy is quite in that echelon. But versus the Powerpuff Girls, obviously who we are, what we stand for. We're gonna want to watch an episode or three of Family Guy before we want to sit down, the two of us, and watch episodes of Powerpuff Girls. All right, so Family Guy will move on to go against what I think is the most difficult decision of this entire first round. Who is going to win between Tiny Toons and Hey Arnold?
I have no fucking idea.
This is like they're very different. Again, this is
It's like
almost like the Looney Tunes
like
Ed and Eddie, but
this
just
is like choosing like who's your favorite dog.
this is like I said, Looney Tunes versus Ed and Eddie, I think is a very similar idea and dynamic, but Tiny Toons just ramps it up more. It's better than Looney Tunes for us because it was made like kind of for us. When we were that young, we had the little baby Tiny Toon like, dynamic. And then Hey Arnold was just so subtle and so well done. And again, the same things that make Ed and Eddie great make Hey Arnold even better. So I just don't know how to choose on this one.
I mean, I wish we had some help from people in the chat. This is hard. This is a hard. I mean, it's football head versus tiny. I mean,
If you had to pick one, if you said, let's watch an episode today of one of these, we only have,
I would pick the baseball episode of Hey Arnold. Also, Hey Arnold did have a movie.
Hey Arnold did have a movie. It was a good movie. Um, oh man. I would say between the two of them, I mean, it honestly would depend on my mood, to be completely honest. So I was feeling like, oh man, I'm really excited to watch cartoons. I want to get jazzed up and like, almost like hyper like I was as a kid for watching cartoons. It
You
would
want
be
a
Tiny
sugary
Toons.
cereal and get
Yeah,
up. It would be Tiny
yeah,
Toons. But
it would be Tiny Toons.
any other situation,
Yeah, I mean, as an adult now, Hey Arnold, I'm just like, if I'm feeling more restful, right? And I'm just like, I just want to have like some good stuff on it, that good content. I would just
and
but it would
yeah,
be in the
just
background.
like
Like
you
I
said,
wouldn't
just like
I
you said.
wouldn't
Sorry, go
yeah.
ahead.
It's just tough because I would not say, hey, let me go find episodes of Hey Arnold and sit down to watch it. It'd be more like, let me put it on in the background because it's Hey Arnold and it's chill and it's just like it's very zen
But
and I
it's
can
also just like Ed and Eddie. There's a character for each person growing up. Like
yeah,
there's somebody that anybody can relate to.
yeah,
They got the
absolutely.
Pinky from the country. They got the big fat kid, Harold. They got literally every race is represented. Every
I
race,
mean,
creed, nationality is represented.
like I said, it's like growing up in Brooklyn at the time. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. But so yeah, that's the thing. Is honestly, I guess if it comes down to the what would you pick to watch, I would pick a Tiny Toons episode because it'd be more active for me. I'd actually watch it. Hey Arnold, if I can stream that for free, I will put it on all the time, but it'd be in the background and I might
What are you going with?
you're going Hey Arnold, right? Yeah. I'm gonna go with Tiny Toons here. Like I said, because I would actually watch the Tiny Toons episodes versus Hey Arnold would be like a great background show. So it's again, if the question is what would I sit down to watch, I would sit down to watch Tiny Toons. I would not sit down to watch Hey Arnold at this point. I would have it on as a background show.
And soon, if you're watching this, we will be having graphics where we can just click it and it'll move on. Right now, we don't have that.
We will by next week, though, so stay tuned. But the question is, since we've got a tie,
Hey Arnold by 2 votes.
By 2 votes, 57% and 43% for Tiny Toons. Again, a very, very difficult. I'm glad that the people went out there and voted because, like I said, this is kind of an existential crisis. It was almost better for me to be able to say Tiny Toons because I felt like I could rely on you guys to do the tiebreaker for us, and I wouldn't feel bad either way. So, Hey Arnold takes it and moves forward. Johnny, you've been very good at. I think you're 3 out of 4 right now.
I've always been a man of the people. The people get me. I am the face and the voice of the people. I'm not here for me. I don't do this for me. I do this for everybody else. I do this for their entertainment.
That's very fair. Are you not entertained?
What's that?
You got to ask them, are you not entertained right now?
I'm not entertained. Of course, I do this for them, Rob. I'm a giver. Ladies, I'm a giver.
Very true.
Look at this. I'm a giver.
You're a giver. Just look in these eyes. But I think you've gone 3 for 4 so far on oh, Jesus. On our cartoon bracket so far, at least when we've gone to ties. So far, half of them we went for the tie breaks, half of them we did not. We have our 8 teams in the Great 8. And so let's talk about this first matchup, Johnny. We have the Animaniacs versus the Rugrats. This is pretty challenging for me.
Do you want me to get into this?
Let's get into it. I'm open to be convinced either way. Tell me what you got.
Rob, what's your favorite sport?
My favorite sport, football.
Rob, what's your favorite sport?
Football.
Well, there's an episode of Rugrats, a very famous episode, where they remake the Super Bowl using bottles and chocolate milk. Have you seen this episode?
I have. I remember that episode.
Maybe the greatest episode of cartoons of all time. Animaniacs doesn't have that. Rugrats. They have an actual episode about throwing I remember, Tommy, they throw the bottle to keep it away from Angelica because she wanted the chocolate milk. And I forgot, I think it was maybe Chucky that throws it.
Of course.
And Tommy catches it and they win. They win the Super Bowl while the adults are watching. It's fucking genius writing. Genius with a capital J writing.
That's true. I remember that episode. Now that you brought it up. Yeah, the Animaniacs would make fun of football or make fun of anything, really, like I said, but they never had that kind of common touch because their characters were not meant to be relatable. They were meant to be zany. I remember, so I rewatched a couple episodes, and the one that I saw was them at a mini golf course, and Angelica finds ice cream mountain for them to eat all the ice cream, and of course it's it's a golf course, so it doesn't have ice cream in it, and they're like trying to figure it out and explore it and whatnot. And the part that stuck out to me about the episode was the fact that the 2 dads, or they were there. The only reason why the kids were there is because the 2 dads were like trying to one up each other in mini golf. Like that was like how they were going to, flex on each other as they were better at mini golf. And oh yeah, it was Stu and it was and Lou. And so they were trying to flex on each other about mini golf. And of course the kids are messing around inside of Ice Cream Mountain and setting up they're basically plugging or unplugging the holes that said, when you go through Ice Cream Mountain, does it go to the left, to the right, or hole in one? And it's just this
Right
whole
now.
dynamic. But I felt such a like the maturity of the babies versus the immaturity of the fathers, especially, it was always so great. And I had forgotten how much I appreciated that about Rugrats. Especially as an older guy, watching these shows. So yeah, and of course that's perfect when it comes to the Super Bowl episode. It's just like it's that squared. So I'll agree with you, Johnny. You convinced me that Rugrats is the way to go versus the Animaniacs because they do a great job. You said genius with a capital J.
That's right. Trademark.
Trademark it. Awesome. All right. Then that is our first Final Four person, Rugrats, the 2 seed, coming out of that corner of the bracket. So now we have Futurama versus South Park. I'm pretty sure I know where you're going to go with this. So let me start so that you can tell me why I'm wrong. I'm going to start with, I guess what I would say is the way I'm looking at this is through its body of work. And unfortunately for South Park, it's had a long ass time, right? It's been around very, very long. And so there were seasons that I watched all of the South Park episodes, and I'm just like, God, this is really tough to watch. Before they switched to the let's do an episode every week, like based on the news for that week, they kind of did an episode within 10 days of the news dropping. They went through a rough patch. It really was tough for Matt and Trey to come up with ideas for an entire season arc that weren't, just Mr. Hanky the Christmas Pooh, like
Yeah, children.
or like, Tally, you're
You want to get high?
you're high, Tally. You're high. like
Come on,
like
high. You're high.
it got to almost like Beavis and Butthead level for a while, and it was just really tough to watch, especially knowing that down the pipe, the later seasons they switched formats to really tap in, and it became so much better then. But so there was a few seasons, more I would say, in 20 seasons, there's a few seasons where South Park was maybe because they set the bar so high, they were subpar, right? Futurama, I never really felt like they had a subpar season, in part because they only went a few seasons and then they got canceled and they expected to be done there and they went to the black hole and then they came back and it was just like, and we're back from the black hole because we actually got uncanceled somehow. Let's keep the show rolling. So I always felt like Futurama had a higher quality throughout because it had a much shorter duration. And I appreciated that he kept it, at a high level. It was never Matt Groening giving up the ghost, and I think Matt and Trey in South Park had a couple seasons where it was tough for them to do a season long arc. And then when they figured it out, they figured it out. So, I
Rob,
give them a lot of props for
okay,
that.
Rob, that was great. Good ramble. That's great. Let me tell you why you're wrong. Who has a movie?
Well, South Park.
Who has a song that I can sing right now and you'll sing along with me? Shut your fucking face, Uncle Fucker. You're a boner biting bastard, Uncle Fucker. I mean, let's be real. Who has the absolute hatred towards Canadians? And our entire generation hates Canadians because of one show.
I'm not your friend, guy.
Thank you very much. Who single-handedly helped take down Saddam Hussein because they actually killed him, and then it happened? South Park.
Listen, there are plenty of things that The Simpsons called out, way ahead of time.
Let's not get into that.
I'm just saying, like, if that's the standard, then we've got a very different, thing here.
Rob,
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Like I said, South Park definitely.
Who has the best individual character?
Who is the best individual character in your opinion? I'm curious. Who is
serious?
Go ahead. Go ahead. Do your impression.
Seriously? Get him. This is my cheesy piss. It's Cartman is like seriously the greatest character of all time.
It's true.
Top
That's
three.
True.
He's top three.
That is very true. That is very
He
true.
is. He is. He's racist without meaning to be racist. He is. He's derogatory without trying to be like hurtful derogatory. He's just trying to make fun of. Like when he calls Kyle a Jew every episode, he just does it because he thinks. Just like, okay, we'll have this open discussion. Just like when back when we were in grade school, we thought gay was just. We didn't think gay as two guys like having sex. We just thought it was lame. But he uses that and he still believes that, and it's funny because he doesn't know, just like we didn't know. That's why it was. That's why it's funny.
So he is basically the kids animated version, not really kids animated, but the animated version of Archie Bunker, of where you
Yes,
make fun of him because he has no idea
he's not
how to.
actually racist. He doesn't actually hate anybody. That's just what he is.
Listen. I appreciate that. I don't know if that wins it for me. Cartman in and of himself, fine. You know who actually is my favorite character from
And
all of South Park? It's Butters. It's freaking Butters. That addition of Butters into their gang basically was the greatest thing ever because Butters is like the inverse of Cartman. He also doesn't really understand that he is whatever he is. He just like, like everything that he says or whatever, he's just trying to make his way through it, but he means no one any harm. Cartman really doesn't give a shit about anybody else. That's the issue with Cartman. He doesn't mean anybody harm, but he also doesn't give a shit about anybody else.
kind of why I
Butters
love him.
really wants to be a nice guy.
But that's why I love Cartman.
I know. And that's why I love Butters. So I mean, yeah, I'll agree with you there. I'm totally on board with what South Park, like I said, when they get to like the Imagination Land trilogy, my God, like that was such a great series. Like it was
That was a whole season, right?
well, it ended up being a trilogy. Like it was in the middle of a season, I think, but they made a whole like we're doing now this Imagination Land trilogy, and God, it was just so dark. But here's the other thing that I have to throw out there, okay? And this really doesn't apply here, I guess. This is more as a question I have for future because I will give you that's between South Park and Futurama. South Park will win out. South Park, some of their greatest work was after kind of this cutoff, right? We were in like college by the time some of their greatest things were coming out. The Kanye stuff, like all of that happened in the 2010s, clearly was not
And stuff.
like the fish sticks just saga, but that it was after kind of this cartoon heyday. So yeah, they started in the 90s. 100% agree with that. They deserve to move on. They will get into the final four, but are they truly a millennial cartoon by the time they're doing Imagination Land and they're doing Kanye and they're doing all these other amazing things? But it's because we were in college at that point, so it was like so much better.
Like they grew up with us.
They grew up with us, they kept up with us past the kind of heyday of millennial cartoons. So do we give that as a bonus to them or do we take it away from them? Can we count that? So that's just something for you to think about.
They took their audience and grew up with them.
Sure, but to me that's beyond what we were originally talking about. That's all. I'm just saying I'm throwing it out there now as something for you to ponder for the next episode, or not the episode. We're going to finish this tonight. That for the next round. But I will agree. South Park is going to go through, and they will be going against Rugrats in the final four. So let's find out who's going to be on the other side of the bracket. We've got ourselves, again, by audience vote. We have Looney Tunes that got through over Ed, Ed, and Eddie versus Spider-Man 94.
These are just getting harder and harder. That's what she said. And then when you get hard, you got to use these. I want a fucking sponsorship. Anyway,
Fair enough.
Spider-Man 94 brought me into liking comic books, brought me into liking that kind of action, that kind of cartoon, that kind of comic, that kind of. I don't really. So Spider-Man's not even my favorite superhero, but he was my first.
Interesting.
Batman is my favorite,
And yet the animated series.
followed by Captain America. But Spider-Man introduced you to everybody, and it gave you a good backstory, and they gave you like something to look forward to and something to watch, and like, oh, they're bringing back this character. Oh, they're bringing back this character. You know, it was almost like our first soap opera for kids.
Yes.
Where Looney Tunes
Dragon Ball Z really was, but yes.
Well, that I watched. Looney Tunes, because I'm not a loser and I like girls. Looney Tunes was like our sketch comedy. It was like our Saturday Night Live with different caricatures. So I'm gonna let you sell me on this one, just like you let me. So I'm gonna let you sell me on this one, and I'm gonna go with your consensus on this one, honestly.
Okay. So, yeah, two very wildly different shows.
Those are two comparisons that are great. I think it's ones that are young Saturday Night Live sketch, and the other one is our first soap opera.
Yeah, and I mean, again, Spider-Man is one of my favorite comic book characters that I enjoyed because of the kind of soap opera style, thing that he's always had going, where there's always these different villains, and he's always the one trying to take care of it and all that. I guess what I would say is that between the two, I think I would rather sit down and watch Looney Tunes today, because it wouldn't matter what episode we threw on there. We would kind of be transported back to that, again, that sketch style, that variety show, but all of the characters, like, oh, there's the Tasmanian Devil, there's this, there's that, like there they are, and they're doing their thing and they're doing it well. And it puts me right back into the mindset. Spider-Man, I can't just watch one episode. There is no way to jump into Spider-Man 94 and watch an episode and be like, yeah, cool. I got my fix. I love cartoons. This reminds me why I love cartoons. You would not have to see
that's a soap opera, but you need to know what happened before, what happened after.
And they always did a good job of keeping it fairly clean, so it was pretty easy to kind of catch up on stuff. I will say, because I looked into it, Spider-Man, the people making Spider-Man couldn't, they had some of the weirdest rules restricting what they could show, even more so than Batman the Animated Series or any of these other X-Men. Nobody really had the same level of just random things that they couldn't show for Spider-Man. Like he doesn't really punch anyone because they didn't want any physical punching. He always kicks and webs pretty much like 90% of the bad guys, or the bad guys hurt themselves or whatever, they run into each other or whatever, because he wasn't allowed to punch anyone. That was just from the network. They were just like, yeah, no, you don't get to do that. So I guess what I would say is it's brilliant. It's that they were able, it's genius with the J, that Spider-Man 94 is able to make, milk 5 seasons basically out of, nothing, out of very restrictive things. But it doesn't put them on the same level as Looney Tunes, where literally any Looney Tunes episode we put on, that it's going to be entertaining and it's going to be quality because it's got that sketch show effect of it. Spider-Man, I wouldn't be able to watch just one episode. And if I did watch just one episode, I'd probably be like taken aback today about how just kind of janky it is compared to, I guess the issue with Spider-Man 94 is that it's been overtaken by all the movies that have come out. I mean, they've now relaunched Spider-Man live action 3 times at this point. And of course, all of the Marvel Universe stuff and the DC stuff, all of the superhero craze has, in my opinion, done a good thing and really made it mainstream, which is great. But that means going back to these old things where it wasn't really mainstream and they were trying to like bring it into the mainstream consciousness. They're great, but they're limited. They're very limited in utility. Looney Tunes is timeless. So I mean, between the two, I think I would go with Looney Tunes. if I had to pick one over the other to watch today, one episode, let's get back into watching cartoons.
That's what we're doing. So I will go Looney Tunes.
Okay. And that makes sense, right? Like I said, the timelessness of it's tough to beat. So, okay. So now we have one left, or rather one more matchup for our final four. Looney Tunes makes it to the final. I believe the only number one seed to make it this far.
Yes.
I think they're the only number one seed to make it, period, to the final four. So, or to the grade 8 and now into the final four. Okay. Our last matchup to get into the final four, we have Family Guy versus Haye Arnold.
I don't want to talk about this.
Johnny, come on now.
No.
I'm voting Haye Arnold. I really like Family Guy. I really do. I like Family Guy, but Family Guy is almost like all of the things that make it great also make it terrible when you compare it to Haye Arnold. So let me
But they have Tom Brady singing Shapoopy, Shapoopy, Shapoopy. Come on.
And I love I love the Music Man. I know the musical they're taking that from. It's great.
I don't know.
They're exact opposites in terms of their approach. Haye Arnold is, let's talk about some humanity. Let's have really relatable characters. Let's have silence in the middle of our episodes where Arnold or any of the characters, if you're really scoping in on them, they're just in quiet reflection and kind of just thinking about life, because that's what being a kid really is about, right? Yeah, there's a lot of loud noises and everything else because everything's new and exciting. But
okay, so because there's already a South Park in the final four,
mm-hmm.
and that would be literally comparing apples to apples.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should move Haye Arnold through. I love Haye Arnold. Everybody wanted to be Arnold, even though I was more of a Harold. And you were definitely, I mean, this isn't racist, but you were the Chinese girl.
Of course I was.
I don't remember her name.
Oh, I want to say it was Cindy.
And everybody had a stinky, and everybody, Arnold was just a cool guy without having to be cool.
He was.
And he just really brought he brought a lot of realism to the cartoons.
He was the coolest because he kept it real. He literally kept it real as much as he had his, I'd rather be, whatever, his daydreams about going somewhere and doing something.
His own problems with his parents being down.
Exactly. I mean,
but I fucking love Family Guy.
I really enjoy Family Guy as well. What I'm saying is that Family Guy, it's all about, random cuts away and like just loud noises and that's great. And they did it really well. And they had some seasons where they were on top of the freaking world for good reason. But Hey Arnold was, in my opinion, superior because it was quiet. Because like I said, I can put Hey Arnold on in the background and I'm not going to be distracted by it. Whereas an episode of Family Guy, depending on the episode, I could be, really excited to watch it or really turned off by it because it's Family Guy. It's a double-edged sword. So
Brian the talking dog. Everybody hates Meg.
So Meg hitting on Brian was the weirdest and one of the funniest episodes ever. But one of my favorite episodes about Family Guy was in the later seasons. Quagmire just goes to town and rips Brian apart in terms of why Brian is like the fucking worst. And I thought that was hysterical because it was so.
My favorite Family Guy is when Stewie and Brian were gambling with each other, and Stewie kept threatening him. Where's my money, man? Where's my money? Then he would shoot him in the kneecap.
Yep.
It's very well done.
So my favorite.
I'm gonna have to watch an episode right now since we're gonna go on. That's the scale we've been using. Let's stay consistent.
Yep.
I would say, Hey Arnold, very slightly.
Fair enough. Like I said, I'm just kind of setting up later discussions as well. But Hey Arnold, I think should go through because it is not like these other shows. Though again, Rugrats is fairly quiet too for a cartoon. But Hey Arnold just soaked in silence, reflective silence, reflecting on life and everything else. And like I said, it's the polar opposite of Family Guy. So I definitely think it deserves the edge. Okay. So with that said, we managed to give each other the opportunity to convince each other of what should go through. So we've got in our final four, and here we could stop the screen share for right now, so we can talk
I
more.
really don't want to do this.
You really don't want to do this? Come on, Johnny.
It's too important. And I don't want to fuck this up.
So I guess what I would say is if you really want to take a break from this with our final four, we can. I just think that we have
No, we have to do it. We have to give people
really
what they
great
want.
things going
But
on.
I don't want to because it's hard.
Which side do you want to start with, Johnny, with our final four? Do you want to start with Rugrats versus South Park or Looney Tunes versus Haye Arnold?
Keep it how it's going. Keep it how it's going.
All right. Rugrats versus South Park, Johnny. Talk to me.
I don't know. They both have movies.
Mm-hmm.
They both have outstanding opening songs.
Mm-hmm.
Great animation for the times. Great storylines. Great characters.
Both went about it a very different way, though, right? So Rugrats, by just its very nature, was always softer. Because it's about babies, right? It was about just being.
Rugrats gets the edge on name because what a great name. Because now everybody calls their kids Rugrats. Like, that's a great name.
All right. I think that's fair. Like I said, I think between the two, Rugrats to me sums up what this bracket is about. This bracket is about the nostalgia that we feel for these shows when we were kids.
And it's millennial and it's nostalgia. And my first cartoon that I ever remember watching was Rugrats on Nickelodeon on channel 32.
Yeah. And, like I said, just
Don't
even
get
though
me wrong, South Park is fantastic.
Well, and the thing is, it almost hurts South Park for the fact that they grew up with. I mean, Rugrats tried to do that a little bit as well. They had some of the stuff where they were older. Trying to.
Rugrats all grown up.
Yeah, the Rugrats all grown up, like that sort of thing. I get it. It just they didn't try. They didn't have to grow up with us because the show itself was so well done as is that it made it perfect as it was, and it didn't even ruin it that it was they did the older stuff. It just wasn't needed. Whereas like we were talking about, South Park kind of needed that relaunch, when it finally was like, okay, we're no longer doing fart jokes consistently all the time, just that. Let's talk more about, politics or the cultural things going on. Let's go make fun of Kanye West for a few years. Like these things hit home because they knew that their audience had grown up. And that's what makes South Park great as a show. But as a 90s millennial cartoon bracket,
we got to put Rugrats to it. We have to stay honest to the bracket.
Yeah, that's what we're here to do. It's not just all TV shows. There's a reason why we wanted to talk about these millennial cartoons specifically. So okay. We'll edge through Rugrats. So that means have the other side, Haye Arnold and Looney Tunes from the 90s specifically. Again, Looney Tunes is timeless, but the Looney Tunes we grew up with.
It's Haye Arnold.
It's Haye Arnold.
Like, I don't know why. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I don't know why that was that easy after being so hard for them to beat Family Guy.
Family Guy's a special place in our
I,
heart too because it
I
came
also
out.
think Family Guy would have beaten Looney Tunes too.
Well, and it's because Family Guy started when we were kids, right? Like that's really what it comes down to is these shows. I mean, Hey Arnold was like 96, 95, through, or I don't even know, but like mid to late 90s through the early 2000s, it was our show. It wasn't Looney Tunes was also my dad's show, my grandfather's show. You know what I mean? Like Bugs Bunny, timeless, great character, but he's been around since before
And
World War
he's
II.
been a dick since 1945.
Exactly, exactly. And the OG, Mel Blanc, who voiced him and a bunch of other characters, was unbelievable. But that was not our show.
And I don't want to take away from their run. They had to go this far.
Yeah, they were again a one seed for a reason.
They deserve to go this far.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. It just at the end of the day, again, what's truly 90s or millennial about the Looney Tunes compared to Hey Arnold? Again, not in and of itself, just compared to Hey Arnold. So hard to say that Looney Tunes could beat out Hey Arnold. And so we're going to say it doesn't. So now we've talked ourselves into a corner.
2 Nickelodeon shows.
Of course. Were you surprised by anything else?
Well, I mean, Cartoon Network was great, but Cartoon Network was more of. I don't want this to come out wrong because I love Cartoon Network. But they're millennial, like they had Scooby Doo, they had all the retro shows like Flintstones. Those were fucking fantastic, and they would do an awesome run if it was an overall cartoon. But their newer ones were more stupid. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and again, Ed and Eddie was like with the longest running or one of the longest running on Cartoon Network, had 11 years.
Flat, stupid. Like it was more like Splash, not
Yeah.
substance.
Yeah. And you know what it was is that again, for a network that Nickelodeon was for us as kids, right? In the 90s and stuff like that. And we kind of outgrew Nickelodeon a little bit because their other shows, their non-cartoon shows were fine, but they weren't, they didn't hit the spot. And then you had Cartoon Network, and then you had Adult Swim for Cartoon Network, right? So like they had all of kind of this is the kids stuff, but we all know that the real shit happens after dark, and you go to Cartoon Network for all the shit you're not supposed to be watching.
Yes.
And the Adult Swim, and then we were old enough to just go watch it on your own, and it was the Adult Swim stuff. That's when you really hit that niche. I don't know, that market for us. But we were in high school at that point. We were in college. We were older. Again, we missed the nostalgia factor. So that I think that makes sense that 2 Nickelodeon shows would get to this part because again, they were the power players at the right time. It's all about timing. And that the Nickelodeon had that spot.
So what do we do here, Rob?
I would love to kick this to our audience, but no one's watching right now. So they've really recorded this for posterity. Okay. When you think of a great cartoon, like what's the first thing that comes to mind? Let's talk about priorities here because you got to have it all, right? But what's the number one thing that gets you locked in?
A great protagonist.
A great protagonist. Okay, so let's match protagonist. I will give you mine, and then we'll kind of have 2 different elements to look at.
It's Tommy Pickles versus Arnold, and that's a wash.
Well, it's so I think.
And then if you want to go with secondary, it's Chucky Finster versus Gerald. That's a wash.
Here's what I think this should come down to. So, and this is just me. You talk about the great protagonist, yes, absolutely. But number one for me, for a kid show, is not just the protagonist, but who is the antagonist, the primary antagonist, right?
Okay. Angelica versus Helga Pataki. It's just like when the Rugrats grew up.
Yeah, but I love Helga. The reason why Helga to me wins out in that is because Angelica, I mean, it's it's obviously Tommy's her brother. Like for as ridiculous,
it's his cousin.
it's his cousin, but he's family. Sorry, but my point is that You would never see Angelica be like, what the heck, Tommy, you're an idiot, and then be like, oh, Tommy, I love you so much. Like Helga
You
picked
like
on
the
Arnold.
duality. You like the duality.
Maybe because I was told multiple times when I was growing up, oh, that girl's only picking on you because she likes you, you know.
We've
And I
never.
would either run, I would be Arnold running away from the girls on the playground who were trying to beat me up, but probably really just thought I would, they liked me. And so this whole duality of Helga Pataki is so good to me because she's like, very like Shakespearean, tragic, romantic, like, oh, I love him so, but I have to give him shit, like I do love the duality, but it's like almost like I said, almost Shakespearean in its
For that
romanticism.
reason alone, you want to put Rugrats through? Or
No, well, I think in that. So I'm saying that my number one thing that I look at is the antagonist just as good or better than the
so
protagonist. So yours is the
tertiary?
protagonist
So that the tertiary character, we'll go with it's 1-0 Hey Arnold right now.
right now, right
Now
now. So there are there other elements that
let's
you
go
look
with
at.
grandpas. Which grandpa was better?
Ooh, oh,
I think it's a wash.
I think it's a well. So, but Grandpa for Hey Arnold, he was also the father figure, right?
Yes.
So let's really compare father. Let's compare parental figures, right? Especially for our protagonists.
Stu
For
was great. Stu was great.
Stu is so good. Stu is so like he was always like not clean shaven, like doesn't have control of his life at all.
It was very real.
It was very real. But even I think I mean Tommy's mom as well. I thought was a very likable character. Or am I misremembering?
And they actually had therapist Dr. Lipschitz. So I would say parental will go with Rugrats.
I think they were very strong. I think that because they were like their own crew and they were all weird oddballs as well. And they have all these weird kids trying to just make shit happen. Like again, just trying to raise these kids as the best as they can and basically saying, well, Angelica can take care of them. It's fine. And of course, Angelica's the antagonist. So
All
yeah.
right, we'll give a parental guidance to that. 1-1. How
Okay.
about pets?
Pets.
I think Rugrats wins in a landslide with Spike over the pig.
Well, what's interesting is Hey Arnold, there were tons of pets all the time. Every time he opened his door,
Was the
because he lives in a tenement, like there's the pets are everywhere. He's just constantly got pets, animals, cats, dogs everywhere.
His pet was the pig.
That's true. That was his pet. That is very true. So the singular pet. Yeah, I would say. Well, here's my question. So, um, I would go with before we go with the pets. What about the crew, right? So like when the Rugrats rolled out to do their thing, because you got the twins,
Phil
and
and Lil.
you got yes, Phil and Lil. So you've got them added, of course, with already the people we talked about, the protagonist, antagonist, and the best supporting character. But then with Arnold, you just have, I mean, you have more, but they also have
Depth.
so much oomph, depth to it. Yeah.
But
I mean, they got stretch. Rugrats had what?
Rugrats had Reptar.
Ooh, but that could to me that goes back to well, not pets, but animals. I think that Rugrats wins on animals.
We'll nudge out crew to Harold. Now it's 2-2.
Now it's 2-2. Okay, so best of 5 series, right? This is just how this works, right? Not that we ever get to do this in basketball, but
The defining factor.
in not in March Madness anyway. If we had a best of 5 for the championship, it'd be a very different.
I think the only way to decide this is who has the best song.
Ooh. Rugrats. Easily.
Arnold. Hey, Arnold.
I mean, again, not bad. Always very jazzy, like very kind of smooth. Again, just giving the appearance of coolness in 1990s with jazz from like the 40s. That's a great look. But well, that's Doug.
Oh no, and Rugrats was
Do 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 do
Yeah.
do. Yeah, just the baby toys, man. God, it gets me every time.
So
Every
are we gonna have to crown the champs?
I think we've decided, man. I mean, I don't know if you agree with me on this or not, but here, let me share my
Ready?
screen.
Let's say a 1, 2, 3, and if we agree, then they win. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Rugrats. Yep.
There they are.
Rugrats.
All right.
Rugrats is your winner.
Rugrats is your winner, ladies and gentlemen. I think that we certainly, especially for a championship, I think that we went all the way down to the studs on that one as to why Rugrats, just is a slightly, and by I mean slightly better show than Hey Arnold. I now want to watch, all of these shows again. I think that's the best part about doing this show.
I could watch both Hey Arnold and Rugrats all night now.
Exactly. Just because we've talked it up and we've gone through it and we've done some research. The best part about these brackets is that with everything that we do, we learn a little more about stuff we already thought we knew a lot about. And it just brings back the nostalgia factor of the things we love as millennials and as kids and even teenagers, all of that. It just brings it back into form. I mean, going through this from the first round, Johnny, I am really seriously considering buying Batman the Animated Series, mostly so I could give it to you so you can fucking watch it. Like, it's so worth watching. Same with
I want to go rewatch like Doug.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Doug would have made it a lot farther, but they played the semi, the finalists.
The finalist. And so that's the thing. Hey Arnold took out a lot of really great shows that I absolutely want to rewatch. I will do one plug. You've been talking about Magnum the whole time. Fair enough. Trojan, we're always here for you, buds. Since you're always there for us. But apparently, if you want to watch 90% of these shows, HBO Max has all of them. Like, you just have to subscribe. And now I don't know how much that costs. HBO Max apparently has like 90% of the shows that we talked about.
I didn't know that.
Check it out, dude. Definitely, you know where to start because you've got.
Because I know Paramount Network is doing all of Nickelodeon now.
True,
Oh, but it's on HBO Max. That's right.
Exactly. So like I said, it was the thing that I didn't know I needed was HBO Max, because now if I want to scratch the itch and watch any of these great shows and I want to watch all of them,
it's only $10 too.
Okay, well there you go. So like I said, no free ads, but at the same time, I know what I'm going to be investing in so that I can get back into watching all of these shows in all their glory. But anyway, that is our episode for tonight. That is, we have our champion crowned. We appreciate everybody who didn't watch this but will watch this in the future. And definitely check us out on Twitter.
And next week, all you schnerds out there, you want to throw fists with us? We're doing a bracket because we're the bracket boys during the off season. We're the Spike boys always. We're the bracket boys during the off season. Rob, let's tell them what we're doing next. What are we doing next week?
We are doing the top 64 console video games as ranked by IGN.com, but we are going to obviously have to curate it down so that we get all consoles, because PC games are great. We got a PC.
Yeah, no Sims nerds and that other stupid one. What do those nerds play, Rob? The nerdy one with the nerds, World of Warcraft. No, we're not doing nerd stuff. We're doing cool shit, like stuff on N64 and GoldenEye, which I think is going to win. I don't even know what they're ranked.
Even through the most recent games too, though. So this is an IGN list that came out very recently with the release of the PS5 and the new Xbox, all of that. And they still have a lot of really old school games in there because some games truly are timeless, and we will make sure that they are put in a bracket for your consumption. So we'll get that up this week. We're going to have some very cool, speaking of tech, some cool tech stuff up just because we're learning and growing every week with the show. So we'll see you guys next week. Come and check us out on the Twitter and make sure to yell at us as early and often as possible.
Shout out the network.
Oh, yes. Huge shout out to Ion, the boys at the network who are helping us.
Pick up the merch. Pick up the merch.
They just came out with a shirt. Definitely check that out. The other thing, we have our own merch. If you want to check us out, we've got our own store as well. Always about the merch. Always about getting our name out there.
All the Boys podcast, Bacon Focus.
Oh my God, so many. There's so many.
Whose show is it anyway?
The anomalies.
The anomalies.
It just keeps going. I think there's like 6 or 7, and we only named 4, so we apologize to everybody else. But definitely check us out. The last week's Who Shows It Anyway episode is up. Johnny was there with our buddy Gems. I'm coming up on the episode coming up with our buddy Tone for Who Shows It Anyway. So definitely check out all that stuff. And as always, America, Trojans, and apparently HBO Max. Who knew? Anyhow, I'm Spike Rob. He's Spike Johnny B. As always, we want to tell you guys to keep spiking it, and we will see you next time.
See you, bitches.
Boom.